what the end game is. Making sure that as many of them as possible are doing strength training, they're doing their judo 6 days a week, they're doing their mental training, and trying to really that it's really a lifestyle and not just you're in the dojo for 2 hours and then you check out and that's it.
Hey everybody, Dave Loschelt here, Dadbod Judo. Today I have a new guest. Skyler Cummings is my new guest. She is a 14-time national champion, and I'm really excited to kind of talk with her, talk about judo, talk about what's going on now, and kind of get into like, hey, what should we do about developing new players and things like that. So I'm super excited to talk with you today, to kind of get an idea of like, what the culture and the kind of like what's really happening out there in terms of training and traveling and competing, and development, things like that. So welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really excited to talk about some judo today.
So give me some background.
Yeah, so I started judo when I was 6. It was a recreational, like after school program type of thing that had we had seen at my school at the current time, and my dad had signed me up because obviously he had done judo and was at the OTC back when the OTC was a functionable facility,
Mhm.
and so we saw that program. I ended up entering that program, and it was probably like a 10-12 week program, and after I'd gone through the program twice, we ended up finding a club nearby, probably about half an hour away. So we started going there. It was a club in Taffville or Norwich, Connecticut. And I went there for a couple of years. And once that program kind of dwindled a little bit, where kind of the program really didn't grow and there weren't very many new students or anything coming in, I ended up going to another club, and at that point started competing a lot nationally. I competed nationally when I was training at the club in Norwich too, but it was very brief. Only I took second at like the USJA nationals.
Mhm.
And then and that was when I was about 9, I believe. And then I went to another club and really started pushing it on the national level at that point when I was 11, 12 years old. And then once I got to that point, I started once I hit about 12 years old, I started competing in seniors and doing fairly well. And by the time I was 13 or 14, winning senior divisions and stuff like that. And from there, was going to more national competitions, winning them very consistently. And once I became a cadet, I made the cadet and junior world team in the same year, at 52 kilograms. At the time, that's the weight I was fighting. And from there, I went to Belgium and France. So I went to the Belgian Ladies Open, um, and fought quite a few world medalists there and everything, and went to the Paris Grand Slam camp after that. And that was kind of my year of my cadet and junior world in the same year there. And then moved around some weight classes and stuff like that, and was still training and competing internationally and nationally and everything. And then COVID kind of hit, and here we are.
Wow, so you really started young.
Yes.
I had Lauren Meese on a few months ago, and she actually started pretty young too. She was like 16, 17 when she made the Olympic team.
Yes.
So it really, women's judo starting so young. Typically, you kind of hit your 20s and that's when you're kind of peaking. But in terms of being like, what, 13, 14 years of age, it's senior nationals, it's kind of a big deal. Out of all that experience, like, what do you think? What did you take away from like, the training, the traveling, the development, the winning, the losing? What do you remember the most?
So a big thing about being able to do a lot of this stuff at a younger age and going to something like senior nationals at 13, 14 years old, and going toe to toe with some of the better women in the country at the time and everything. And by the time I was 15, 16, going to some senior international things. A big thing that I really gained from that was experience, but experience that didn't have so much pressure. So it's a really important thing that if it's a possibility that at a younger age being able to go to some of the competitions that maybe are a little bit out of your league, but having no pressure. So it's a full developmental stage of I want to win this and I know I can do well in this, but if I don't, it doesn't affect anything. So I think it was a really good time period for me where I was 13 years old and going to senior tournaments or senior national type tournaments and fighting that division and fighting under 21 divisions at 12, 13 years old and stuff like that. And really having no pressure in my mind and being able to go out there and kind of put forth the best that I had to offer at the time. And because I had no pressure and mentally was able to put the best out there that I could, I developed a lot quicker than most people probably would if they didn't do that. They're
Mhm.
just fighting their own age groups and their own weights and everything all the time. They get kind of settled in and too comfortable in their category and everything, and being able to fight up like I did and do very well. It was a big development where I could really adjust to higher level judo from what I was at the time and really feel it out and be able to progress myself to that point a lot quicker.
What's the biggest tournament you won?
Um I medaled. I never won like a huge international thing or anything like that. There was a tournament in France when I was younger that I took that it was a team tournament, so we won it as a team. I won all my matches. I won like 9 out of 10 matches or something for the day. And then I took third at the Junior Pan American Championships. Um, I I won the cadet and junior world trials and won some other senior tournaments against some pretty tough competitors at the time. And I kind of there was a certain point where I kind of fought a couple different weight classes, just trying to feel out where I should be and stuff like that. So I ended up winning consecutively. I won a nationals at 52 kilograms, a nationals at 57 kilograms, and a nationals at 63 kilograms. So it was in in junior, but within about a year period, I won all those nationals at those different weights. So it was pretty cool experience to be able to kind of jump around and feel that out and be able to fight different styles and really fall into myself as a competitor.
Did you gain the weight for those?
So when I was fighting at 52 kilograms, which is 114 and a half, I was pretty heavy compared to obviously what the weight class is on that day. So I would sit at probably when I fought 52 consistently, I sat at like 61 kilograms.
Mhm.
So basically when I went up and decided to start fighting 57 kilograms, it was still a cut at that point. And then I weighed about 63 and and it was like, maybe I should uh try fighting 63 for a little bit just to give myself some time, give myself some development time and everything. And so I fought 63 for about a year, I'd say. And
Mm.
I went and fought at like the Quebec Open and took second and stuff like that. So at 63 kilograms. So it was cool to be able to float around like that. And that was a big development period for my judo. Just because I wasn't worrying about the winning portion as much as I was the learning and improvement.
It's really a good point. When you put all that pressure on you for winning, about winning, then it can really stymie your development because you're always trying not to lose. I
Right.
tell people there's like, winning, there's playing to win and playing not to lose. And it's
Right.
two different mindsets. It's like I give the example like in hockey, right? The team's up, 5-3, and they're now want to hold on to the game, so now they're playing not to lose.
Right.
The other team scores, two goals in 2 minutes, and then all of a sudden now it's tied up. And then
Right.
within 30 seconds, the other team scores another goal, and then because they're playing to win, they end up losing 6-5.
Yep.
So it's like, when you're letting go like that and just having fun and going for it and just experimenting, you really develop much, much more. I mean,
Definitely.
that's really important. You know, because I don't know, like I'm really big on the mental side of it. Like my career
Definitely.
is on like, I've worked in, yeah, I've been a therapist. You know, I've written books on it, things like that. So it's like I'm really big on the mental, the sports psychology part of the sport, and it's so important to be able to have that ability to keep your mind focused on, what you need to do in terms of like playing, playing to win and not playing not to lose.
Right.
So was that
Definitely.
something that your coach, your dad, instilled in you? Was it something that was that something that was like, drilled into you or told to you, or how did you get to that mindset?
That was something more that I felt from talking to other judoka, because a lot of people that are Olympians and world medalists and Olympic medalists, they all kind of say the same thing where it's supposed to be serious and you're not supposed to have fun all the time and you're not supposed to do the easy thing typically and whatever else, but they all had the same relative theme of that if you're not enjoying yourself to a certain extent, that you're probably not doing something right.
Mhm.
So they all had that similar theme, and that's just something that they basically, especially at me being 17, 18 years old, I had a lot of people tell me that this is like a development period for you. Like you need to take a step back, not worry so much about being on the podium consistent, or obviously always want to be on the podium consistently, but not so worried about doing that, but more about developing so that later on you're doing better. And what really matters is the higher levels, and to get there, it's this stuff nobody's going to remember this stuff later. So if you get to that level that nobody thinks about this, so that realistically it's all for the end game, not what's going on currently, basically.
So what do you tell your students? What do you instill in them when you're training them?
So it kind of depends. So I have obviously younger kids that have a lot of potential, 10-ish years old, stuff like that. And for them, it's about right now, for that type of age group, it's about number one, making it fun, but getting them in the dojo every day, as much as possible. So I have some kids that are doing judo at 9 years old, 6 days a week, multiple
Wow.
classes, and they enjoy it. But it's all about making it fun. Obviously disciplined, and it's going to be hard and stuff like that sometimes, creating a bond with them. But it's really, really important to get them in the dojo as much as possible at that age. And a lot of people will say different things regarding that, because it's like, oh, at the younger ages, it's good to get them into everything and whatever else. But realistically, if a kid likes something at 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, it's probably something they want to stick with. If they are willing to go that much, it's probably something they should kind of put their everything in a basket for. So there's like specifically, I have a kid that's 9 years old. He's been doing judo for 3 years now. Really good kid. Comes 6 days a week. Helps with our like 4 or 5 year old class to learn how to teach and stuff like that. Just started going to tournaments like a year ago. Doing really, really well, fighting up weights and killing some kids and everything. And but the biggest thing for him is he loves it because he's in the dojo so consistently. um, there's never a point where, say, like a friend at school would be like, "Oh, you could just skip practice and come play at my house." Or so, because it's such a routine and it's so consistent, and he just enjoys it, and it's a fun environment for him and a good learning experience. He always wants to be here. So at that age, it's about fun, but keeping it as consistent as possible year round. Anything you can get for that age is so important.
Mhm.
Once it moves into like the 12 and 13 age group, that's when I try to have them start taking a little bit more seriously. So like I have a group of girls that are about that age, and a couple of boys that are going into that cadet age group. They're in the juvenile age group that um they're tough, and they've been doing judo for probably 2 years at this point, maybe three, a couple of them. And Right now, they developed really good base fundamentals at this point, and again, keeping them in the dojo as often as possible, so there's a good group of people around them. There's no little to no distraction, and basically trying to keep it so that it's basically their life is family, school, judo, and a little bit of fun time. So
Mhm.
it's not so widespread to so much downtime. Keeping them busy is a big thing. Keeping them focused, goal writing super important. I have them do that all the time, or at least keep something where they know what their goal is, and that way when there's a day that they might want to skip practice, there's that goal that it's like, well, if I don't go to practice today, that could affect that. So once they hit that age, they start to understand that the things that they actually do affect later on things that they want. So really keeping that for that group is a really important thing. Developmentally, obviously, it's always important. And at that age, I think competing as much as possible is a really big thing. Not necessarily for obviously winning, but in order to really get used to competing consistently, because the biggest thing I see with kids especially is that they get nervous, and the term anxiety gets thrown out around a lot, and stress and whatever else. So the more they can compete at that age, the easier it'll be to get them used to it. And then by the time they're 16, 17, 18, when it matters a little bit more, they're really into it, and really okay with losing in front of people, and okay with winning in front of people, and okay with all aspects because they've dealt with it all when they're younger. So for the kids age group, that's the way I think about it, just keeping them consistent and trying to keep them in the dojo as much as possible. And then when it comes to younger adults and teen, like later teens that are really competing, to me it's an all-around game. So I really preach them that it matters what they're doing at every second of every day if they want to do well in judo. So I understand, and I know they all understand that if they want to just do judo for fun and go to some tournaments and stuff like that, that's one thing. But if you have bigger goals and stuff like that, that it really is an all around experience. And realistically, every move you make kind of affects what the end game is. So making sure that as many of them as possible are doing strength training, they're doing their judo 6 days a week, they're doing their mental training. If they need need mobility training, they're doing that, and trying to really frame in that it's really a lifestyle and not just you're in the dojo for 2 hours and then you check out and that's it.
Mhm. When did you open your club?
2020 in November. So it was about no or COVID started March 2020 ish, and I opened November 2020.
So you're open 6 days a week,
Yep.
multiple classes.
Yep. I have like a young kids age group, and then I have an older kids age group, and then I have like a teen and adult class um couple days a week, and then I also have a wrestling program as well. And then adult judo 6 days a week.
So how many club members you have?
I have about 100 right now.
Mhm. So it's a pretty busy schedule. Pretty good business.
Definitely.
Sounds like a lot
Definitely.
of fun.
It is, and it's something that if to me, if as far as even growing the school itself, and wanting students to be competitive and stuff like that, it's really something that has to be done full time, I think. For any instructor in the country, especially that really wants to grow their program and spread judo, and have good competitors, it really something that has to be focused on full time. So this is like my full time job.
How many black belts do you have?
Um, so I've promoted 2 so far. So it's myself. I have a kid that started with me, that's a black belt, that's 20 years old. I have a girl that's currently ranked number 1 in the country at 57 senior, that I promoted to black belt a little over a year ago now. So I have her, and then I have my dad, and then I have my sister's a brown belt. So
Oh, wow. So how old's your sister?
she is 18.
18. So she's looking to get her black belt soon, I'm sure.
Oh yeah.
That's why I asked, because I was like, the big sister has a black belt and she has a brown belt. But my sister has to promote me. You're not promoting me. I could hear it. I could hear the fights now at the dinner table. That's great. So it sounds like you got a really good program, and it sounds like you got is there a certain curriculum that you guys follow that that you take people through, or is it just like kind of learn at your own pace and you just kind of coach them the way you learned?
So it's kind of in between that. So I'm not a firm believer in a straight up curriculum, and the reason it's not that I don't believe in curriculums, but it's that I think everybody should learn as much everything or as much as they can,
Mhm,
but everybody has their moves, that their techniques or whatever it is that they are very good at and they pick up really quickly and they can improve off of. And then there's other things that people just are not very good at. So
mhm,
I think everybody should learn the basics of every single technique, but being able to grow off of the things that you end up being good at and building judo around that is really what I believe. So I do teach, there's certain things that everybody has to know. And kids learn, I have specific techniques that I teach kids. Like I don't teach any kids like drop senagi specifically because so they can grow their very technical judo, because a lot of kids will learn drop senagi at 6 years old. They'll go against a 6 year old that's not so coordinated, and the drop senagi works, and it might work for a couple of years. Once they get to 10 years old and that drop senagi is not very technical, then they don't have any judo to back it up. So I don't teach any drop senagi, and there's certain things that I also don't teach to kids of certain ages and beginner adults and stuff like that until they reach a certain point, just because it's really a developmental thing. I'm not thinking about it as uh if they can win that tournament tomorrow at down the street that they're doing good or anything like that. It's a long-term development process realistically. So I don't want something that's for tomorrow to negatively affect something for later. So there are certain things I don't teach, and there's some things that I do teach. And everybody will at some point end up learning all of it to an extent.
mhm.
But especially with like the competitors too, um, it's I've really built all their judos up to be different. They're all different. They all have different things they're good at. Some clubs you'll go to and you'll see everybody does exactly the same thing and there's no difference between what they're doing. And I don't necessarily agree with that, just because there's certain people that their bodies don't adjust to certain things right and whatever else. So everybody at my club they might have similar things that they do that are the same as each other, but they all have different styles, and it's all about building up things around their different styles. So a lot of practice. I will have a couple weeks at a time where I'll teach something to everybody and it's the same thing, but then there's time periods where it's like, all right, this is what you're doing, and I teach them a specific thing to branch off their judo that'll add and really accumulate to something that they're missing, and continues on for other people where there might be 15 people in practice and they're all doing different things because they all have something different to work on.
I 100% agree with that. I That's the one. My son's 10, and kind of my thing is like when I grew up, I was super lucky too because I went to a club that had multiple instructors. The head instructor would have every black belt teach something,
Yeah.
and after they would teach it, he would also say, "Does there anybody have anything to add?" Like he would, and then some people would say, "Well, how about I like to add this." And it was really incredible to have like so many different teachers just growing up, because you said different styles and different techniques and different ways of teaching, different ways of communicating. all that stuff mattered. And then our club became very, very good because, like you said, like each individual person really developed their own style, their own techniques. And then,
Definitely.
we would go away and we'd learn things. And then every time we'd go away, he would make sure that he'd say, look, I want you to teach what you learned. If I would go to Colorado or coming to a tournament or whatever it was, I would come back or any of us would come back from wherever we were, and we were almost required to like, give up the goods.
Right, right.
And everybody got pretty good and
Right,
because of that. So it's so important to have that diversity. Um,
definitely.
Even like with my son, like I'll work with him on some gripping and things like that, but I'll leave him go at class. I'll let them just train and have fun and have fun with.
Yep.
I'm not gonna, kind of hover over him. At least I don't try to, because I know
Right.
it's like this is a long-term thing and it's gonna take it's a lifelong, I mean, you know, I've been doing this forever. You have too, and like it's amazing how much you still have to like. I still learn, especially with
Exactly.
YouTube, because there's so much information and so many different people
Definitely.
showing different things. It's like I'm like, what? I've never learned that, and it's really
Yep.
cool. It's a fascinating. It keeps evolving, so it's really interesting, and it's really great to hear you say that. It's really cool. So when you're training, I'm really curious when you went to France and Belgium and other places and Canada, what style of judo was the most difficult for you that you had to compete against? The
The
style.
style that I think that, and it's not even necessarily a specific country or anything like that, because I I think that each there were certain things that I did that really I felt like I was pretty open to different styles and different of different countries, but the one style that was really, or type of technique basically, that was really iffy for me to fight is like the one-handed judo, where it's like one-handed to katagurumas and to different like the reverse seinagi's and that type of odd, maybe you could call it like Korean type style. That was always a weird style where it was very difficult for me to read, just because the movements were so unconventional to anything I was used to. So it wasn't necessarily that I fought a lot of Koreans and they were difficult to fight. It was just there were certain people that I would find difficult to fight if they had that similar technical style.
Hmm. Yeah. What was your greatest win?
Um, Probably the most memorable one anyway was when I won Cadet World Trials. Now it's like 6 years ago or something like that. But and it wasn't even necessarily because the win itself was big, but it was because it was a big mental barrier at the time because I had a hurt knee. So, I had broken my tibia, and in like the second week of January, I broke my tibia, and had some tears in my knee and everything. And the Cadet World Trials that year were like this first week of March. And basically, I had gone in January. I hurt my knee, and it was to the point where it was very unstable and that type of thing. And I took like a week of rest from practice, and then I went back for about a week, left and went to Belgium for a week, went to Paris for a week directly after, came back and had about 2 weeks, and then fought at the World Trials. But it was a very serious feeling injury. Um, it was probably the most pain I've ever been in my life. So I fought that tournament on that broken tibia, and it was a very, very mentally taxing thing to overcome and win the tournament still basically on one leg. So that was probably the most memorable overall. Not necessarily because it was big, but because mentally and physically I knew I had good enough judo and had it good enough in my head where even on like my worst day I could beat pretty much anybody in my division at that point, at least in the country. So that was a big sense of confidence for me at that point.
What's your favorite throw? What's your best
Um,
throw?
my best throw that I probably most consistently threw with was probably Ouchigari.
Yeah.
Um, the basically it was a lot of the things I did was Ouchi, Osoto, Harai, Uchimata. That was my most of my big stuff at that time. As far as on the ground, my big technique was Sankaku. So I finished a lot of matches with that one technique. So I did throw a lot too, and it was usually like Ouchi or Harai or Uchimata. But Sankaku was probably my highest finishing technique generally.
Now, I've noticed there's a lot of postings on Facebook. You do a really nice job marketing judo,
Thank
um,
you.
marketing your club. That I think that's, you know, especially nowadays, like that's really important to be able to do. And you have to have that ability to be able to market judo. What would you what advice would you give people to kind of build their club, get judo notice, get it out there? What's your thoughts on that?
So, a couple big things with that. Number one is that there's always going to be all types of clubs out there. There's the recreational club that's run out of YMCA, that's a $10 a month membership. There's the next step up where it's more of like an after school program where it's a large program that might be through the school or through whatever it is. The step up from that would be probably like a part-time but for profit type program where it's someone has a day job but then they run this program the other part-time where it's maybe 5 days a week where they have some competitors and whatever else. And then the step up from that is a full-time program. And I think this country needs more of those full-time programs because I think, and a lot of people that I've talked to also think, and it's a big thing that people kind of are teeter-tottering off of right now, where um people judo's known as like the cheap martial art, where it's almost the thing that we should be giving for free. And I think judo should grow, but I think people undervalue it because they don't typically have to pay very much for it.
Mm,
So making it following a similar model to like the American Jiu-Jitsu model currently, where you do charge for it. There is a monthly membership. There is a semi decent curriculum where you don't just walk in and randomly teach something, but it's a professionalized program that has a its own dojo where you can kind of host practices whenever you want, where you have your own everything basically, where there are instructors that are always showing up for every practice and consistently building relationships with their students. Another big thing is like you were just talking about the marketing, having a club software, which I didn't know this really until opening my own club, is a lot of clubs don't have it and they just do it all on paper still at this point, or in like a basic Excel program or whatever it is, where it's all automatic payments. There's when people want to book classes, so the program I use, if someone wants to book a trial class to try out a class, they just go on my website, they click on the age group that they're interested in, they schedule a class, and they come in on that day of the class. So realistically, there are times where I do communicate with people before they come in, but realistically, they could just come in and I never actually speak with them until they walk through the door and it's in person.
mm,
So it's all computerized kind of at that point, and you don't have to do the thing consistently where you're doing demonstrations at schools and you're doing this and you're doing where I've noticed that I've done quite a few demonstrations with my club at different events and whatever else. And out of all the students that I've had come through, there might be 3 that I got from something like that. So it's something where if you're keeping up on your social media, if you're keeping up on your website, if you're trying to get your Google rating up and you're getting the Google reviews and the Facebook reviews and whatever else, and you're, like I said, keeping up on your social media and posting consistently and gearing gearing your advertisements towards martial arts and kids improving mentally and physically, and not necessarily towards judo, but advertise it as martial arts, then people seem to come in, and half the time people come in here and think they're doing karate. But then they enjoy it and they see their kids enjoy it and whatever else, and they stay and they continue. And I have quite a few people that have stayed for 3 years now, where they're like clubs that I had been at prior that I know of. They'll have kids come through and they'll do it for a year, or they'll do it for a month here, a month there, on and off consistently. But there's probably 20 people that for almost 3 years have not stopped coming.
And they still think they're doing karate.
Yeah, yeah, right.
That's great. That sounds wonderful. That's really good advice too for
Yes.
a lot of people getting into the martial arts business. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, we'll definitely put a link in this video for contact information for your club. Uh,
Sounds
you know,
good.
put your website, Instagram, Facebook. What do you use? Use Facebook, Instagram?
Yeah, so it's basically just Facebook and Instagram.
Okay.
And then the website, obviously.
Okay. Yeah, the Dadbod Judo channel. We'll put that information on the in the section below. And if anybody's interested in contacting Skyler about martial arts, judo, karate, then they can certainly click on that link and get a hold of her for sure. Is there any other thing that you'd like to talk about before we go?
Nothing specifically. I think we touched up on a lot of different topics, so
This was great. I really appreciate you coming on. This was so interesting. I love the fact you have a super successful club. I got people, learning judo, really getting really good at it, training, traveling, having fun with it, and really kind of giving back to the sport big time. And based on all your experience and your skill, so this has been wonderful. So thank you again for coming on.
thank you for having me. It was fun.